NTV. Yes, like I hinted before, we have a conversation on the, artists who are actually going to Gulu, northern Uganda to meet Gen Salim Saleh to actually ask for a little bit of money that is going to help them pull through this COVID-19 pandemic. Many people asking questions like, where is the Gen ministry in this? And what is the position of Gen Saleh in all this? What position does he actually hold when it comes to the music or music industry within this country? And you also have so many associations that have cropped up, yes, during this time that are also going to Gen Salim Saleh. They are not going as one entity. They've created numerous associations that are going to Gen Salim Saleh to ask for money. And there was also reports a few months ago where two groups, went to Gen Salim Saleh. One was denied entry. They continued to actually move into the same premises, even though they were stopped. And then Gen Salim Saleh had to order for their, beating, and it had to order for them to be beaten up. And you remember that conversation did not go down well with the artists who had gone in Gulu in that regard. So what exactly is happening? How else can artists make their money? We do know that TV stations that play their music are supposed to be paying some money, but not all of them are paying annually. Radio stations are supposed to be paying for the music that they play on air, but not all of them are doing it, meaning that money is not trickling down to the artist, and that's why they are grappling and running to Mr. Saleh. Artists like Chameleon, you would think that he's already self-sufficient, having all these assets being accrued over the last 20 years, but then you still see himself, Mr. Jose Chameleon, also going to northern Uganda, Gulu, to meet Gen Salim Saleh. So a lot needs to be done so that we ensure that more artists are actually helped and they do not have to beg on a daily basis. I have Anthony Mwandha. Is from the Uganda Performing Rights Society and is going to be letting you know as an artist how you can be making money instead of going and begging left, right and center. Very good morning, Mr. Anthony Mwandha.
Good morning.
A callous development pertains to the fact that much as the radio stations, TV stations, hotels and any of these other, premises are playing the music of the artists, they're not paying them annually, or they're not paying their fair share of the annual fees.
Well, it points to the fragile environment, the fragile compliance environment that has existed in managing copyright. Copyright is basically that situation where the owner of works permits commercial users of the works to use his music. But because of the fragile environment, people have been using works belonging to others without having to pay for them. We're in a situation where the Registrar of Copyright, together with the regulator of the broadcasting sector, have now put in place a strict licensing regime whereby people will have to pay in advance before they use works belonging to other people. So in that way, we expect that the artists, the creators of music, will be able to receive some money for their works going forward. Yes.
So what is stopping these premises for paying their fair share annually for now? Is it the implementation?
It is not the implementation, but the
artists are not registering?
That's one thing. The artists are not registering. You can only be protected. Your works can only be protected if you have registered with the collecting society and declared a list of your works. If you haven't registered, then you may miss out on the protection and the resultant revenue. But also, the last 5 years have been characterized with fights between the commercial users of the works, the artists, and the collecting society, in this case, UPRS. But UPRS has begun a journey of restructuring, which has seen increased registration of artists, increased registration of works. It has seen restructuring of the management and the organization. So we expect that in the next 24 months, hopefully, money will start trickling back to the artists, the owners of these works.
All right, let's talk to the artists themselves. They have a representative, George Bush Kaggwa, who is the spokesperson of Uganda Musicians Association. He's replacing Fina Masanyalaze on this conversation. He's joining us via Zoom. A very good morning, Mr. George Kaggwa. Thank you for joining us on Morning at NTV, Mr. Bushington. All right, we shall get back to Mr. Kaggwa. I don't think he can hear me. We do have Andrew Kaggwa, an arts and culture journalist with the Daily Monitor. Mr. Andrew Kaggwa, very good morning. Bring us up to speed with what we are dealing with right now. How Gen Salim Saleh came into the spotlight and how he is the focal point of the musicians when it comes to COVID-19 relief and not the gender ministry like we would have anticipated. How did he become the focal point in offering relief to the artists? Andrew Kaggwa.
Would the Uganda Musicians Association would have to explain that to us. It's very confusing that we are in a country that has a Ministry of Gender, where art and culture directly fall. And in all ways, when you think about it, the Ministry of Gender should be handling artists' causes or each and every issue they have, especially right now when their industry has been down for nearly 2 years. But how Gen Salim Saleh came into the picture, it's a very confusing situation. I cannot say I know how or his mandate. I don't even know his title when it comes to the creative economy and him dealing with them. The other time I learned that he suggested, is it Jose Chameleon joins the board of UNCC? And I'm wondering, okay, so since when do generals actually start suggesting who joins or who doesn't join the UNCC? So in regard to the question, I cannot say I even understand what Gen Salim Saleh is doing with the entertainment industry. But above it all, I do not really believe it's a good thing.
Because it's largely shameful, Mr. Andrew Kaggwa, to see artists going to northern Uganda and beg Gen Salim Saleh, yet they can actually make money from these radio stations, TV stations, all these other business premises that are playing their music. You still do have the restaurants, supermarkets that are open. You still do have the hospitals that are open. They are playing their music every day. If they were paying their fair share, these artists wouldn't be in northern Uganda. Wouldn't you agree, Andrew Kaggwa?
Yeah. I would agree. I would agree that one of the reasons we are in a position where we are right now is because we failed as an industry. In some sectors, we had to be sharp. For instance, very many artists thought it was a bad thing, or they were wasting their time by becoming members of UPRS, for instance. And in that way, we built an industry that was based on performances only. And I do not know a place in the world where people have an industry that's based on performances only, where people can only make money because they are performing. We forgot that there is always that time when you're not on stage. I remember in 2019, I asked someone if their music can serve them if they are not on stage. At that time, I did not know we would have a pandemic. I did not know we would wake up and people cannot be on stage, yet they still have the power too. And that person told me in Uganda, the only thing that works is when you're on stage. And right now, we are suffering the consequences of trying to push an industry where the only thing you could do is make money when you're on stage. So personally, I think even when we are in these discussions and we are looking at what could be done, one, artists have to start by understanding that you cannot live forever. You might stay alive, but on the industry, you might not live forever because new people come up, people pick new interests. And at that time when they are not interested in you and they are not listening to you, your music should be able to work for you.
All right, Andrew Kaggwa, thank you very much for that submission. I'm going to get back to you to talk about how these artists can actually diversify their skill sets so that when music is not hitting hard, they can actually make a living elsewhere. You do know teachers who are not largely able to go back to schools, were able to do some chapati businesses. Some became border riders, others engaged in agriculture and so forth, so that they could diversify their skills and make a living. But then we do know that artists have stuck in that bubble of music, and yet it is not largely open. Let's bring in Anthony Mwandha. We are still trying to figure out the connection for Mr. Kaggwa. But Mr. Anthony Mwandha, yes, let's talk about another issue. The artists are accusing you of not actually helping them on this copyright law.
Well, that is, I think it's an opinion. It's an opinion. And enforcement of the law is not about individuals, but it's about structures and systems.
I see.
In the past, there is a tripartite of organizations. You have the copyright registrar, who is URSB. You have the registrar of the broadcasting sector, who is UCC, and then you have the collecting societies. Now, UPRS manages music. whereas we have pushed, UPRS has pushed to get artists to register. If an artist remains outside the copyright cycle, if the artist is not registered with the collecting society, that artist cannot be protected. His works cannot be protected, and he cannot earn from the proceeds. That's one. When the users of the copyright material do not, or they renege on their obligation to pay for use of these things, then we cannot collect for the artists. We have a situation now where different players have come on board to cause compliance. Among them, by the way, is Gen Saleh. What Gen Saleh has done is that he has brought the conversation to the table, the conversation which had never been had. You had the Association of Broadcasters, you had the artists, you had the Copyright Registrar, and the Broadcasters Register.
I hear you.
On the table. So the conversation is now positive. It hasn't happened in the last 10 years. Now it is happening.
It hasn't happened in the last 10 years, but now it is happening, and the viewer who is watching Morning at NTV right now is wondering, in what capacity is Mr. Saleh actually performing all these duties?
I don't speak for Gen Saleh, but I'll say this. He likes culture. And it's not only art.
It's a personal issue.
Secondly, revolutions have been built on culture.
I get it now.
20 years ago, you had the NRA very deeply involved in sports. The top brass, Gen Saleh and his friends, used to go to watch Sports Club Villa Express at Nachivugo. So I'm not surprised that now they're involved in music. But I also tell you what I learned from him recently is that he likes Kadongo Kamu.
All right.
And that's what he listens to, his phone ringtones and so on. He loves Kadongo Kamu.
I see.
So as a person, he has used his privileged platform to use it to help the artists, the creative sector.
So he's doing it in his own capacity as Gen Saleh.
In his own capacity. And when
no ministry behind him.
No.
No initiative behind him.
No. When we can get some money from the structures that he controls, we are grateful. But that also points to the vacuum in support of the creative sector. If the structures, the established structures were working, this would not have happened. But now he has stepped in because of the vacuum. Other things are happening.
So we do accept that the established structures are not working, and that's why Gen Saleh had to step in.
Yeah, they're not working as they should be. I'll tell you a bit of the contradiction that's happening. The film industry reports to the Ministry of Tourism.
I hear you.
And then you have the Uganda Tourism Board. You have the music industry is reporting through Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs. Then you have the books, the people who write books, comedy and so on, they're reporting through UCC and Ministry of ICT. So there is a mix of so many captains. So there's no structure. So when Gen Saleh comes in there, he uses the leadership of all those and brings them so that you have the conversation of the regulators and the players. That is what I have seen. Hopefully in this revival of the culture sector, there will be a focus to bring the leadership together. I say this partly, I say it spitefully maybe. This is, no ill wind doesn't bring some good.
Indeed.
So the ill wind of COVID has brought for the first time the focus of the culture sector on the table.
Okay.
To say that this is a sector which is viable. It employs so many people. There are about 200,000 people employed in this sector. So it is good. We should celebrate his efforts as opposed to castigating him. Yeah. Everybody who comes on board to bring a good idea is very welcome.
You know, he's very welcome, but then what the viewer wants to really understand is that how about boosting the existing structures? We should have boosted, even though they were failing. Yes. We would have boosted these structures because Gen Saleh is one man, and he needs a team. He needs something like maybe structures that could help this whole cultural institution, which is the music industry, to actually thrive and burgeon, especially during this pandemic. But then he is doing it single-handedly. So that's why we are saying, shouldn't we have boosted the existing structures to ensure that they are thriving and everything is streamlined?
I agree with you. And it has now come to the fore. There is effort, a lot of effort for the first time to put money into this sector. Government has earmarked over the next 2 to 3 years 47 billion shillings for the culture sector. And we believe that that money is going to infuse into the culture sector and get right down to the grassroots people who contribute content into the culture sector.
All right, Anthony Mwandha is the Chief Executive Officer of the Uganda Performing Rights Society, with whom we are having this conversation on the clash over General Salim Saleh's money. Let's also bring in Mr. George Kaggwa. Yes, Bushington, a very good morning.
Morning.
Thank you for joining us on Morning at NTV.
Hello.
Yes, thank you for joining us on. Thank you for joining us on Morning at NTV. We'd like you to shade some light on what is happening here. Numerous associations are bombarding northern Uganda, trying to seek access to General Salim Saleh for some COVID-19 relief. We'd like to know how General Salim Saleh became the focal point when it comes to COVID-19 relief, and not the gender ministry like it should be. How did we get here, Mr. Bushington?
I think General Saleh runs an office. Wealth creation, and at the moment everyone is looking for survival, so they won't matter whether they get the money from, whether it's gender, and if it's the opportunity that is available in General Saleh's office, then the musicians will take it.
I hear you loud and clear.
Yeah. Yes, I'm saying if General Saleh runs operations, wealth creation, and it's the office that has the opportunity to avail the funds to the musicians, then the musicians will go to his office. If Ministry of Gender is paying a deaf ear to the problems that the musicians are having, then what's left for them to do? They run to the office where they have the attention. So I think it's inevitable for them to run to his office anyway.
Money are we talking about, Mr. Bushington?
Yeah.
How much money are we talking about coming in from General Salim Saleh?
At the moment, there's no. I can't say for how much. I can't say how much money is coming in from General Saleh. It depends on who has gone there to get the money and what the proposal is. I don't know how much money is that there is or they're going to give, but I know that at least enough of the associations getting some relief in that office. So I can't speak for how much, I can't speak for any association on how much money they've received, but I know that they're getting help from General Saleh.
You just concurred with the allegations that seem to indicate that numerous associations are cropping up and going to General Salim Saleh begging for money. Yet you are the spokesperson of the Uganda Musicians Association, an association that took the mandate to actually speak on behalf of the many musicians within this country. So how are you letting all these splinter associations bypass you, the UMA, go to northern Uganda, seek money from Salim Saleh, an amount you do not even know? Doesn't that expound this fact that maybe Uganda Musicians Association is a failing entity?
Sorry, I lost you somewhere.
The fact that you have so many artists going to get money from General Salim Saleh, yet you are the only Uganda Musicians Association mandated to help the artists with this same task. Don't you think that you're failing when it comes to your duties?
I don't think we are failing in any way. By law, everyone is free to associate or de-associate with any association they feel like. So there is no monopoly. We're not like it's a monopoly that it's supposed to be UMA. Yes, we want it to be UMA. We want it to be one umbrella, and we've been there for 5 years, 4 years now. We're making 5. And we have the structures, but you know, there's a lot at stake. There's a lot involved. You know, you won't fight selfish interest. You won't fight selfish goals by different individuals. And when they're given the platform, what else do you have to do?
Yes.
But as UMA, we stick to the goals. We stick to our mandate as the association. We stick to what we know we formed the association for, and we shall try and achieve those goals. So yes, we can't stop other people from forming other associations. We can't stop, especially the fact.
And in that regard, Mr. Bushington, are there any positives or pros that come with the creation of all these splinter music associations? Is there any positives?
I don't think there is too much positive. To be honest, there is a lot of division, and as per yesterday, I learned that they are all being told to join UMA. All these other coming up associations are being told to join UMA. We would like to have one body. We would like to have one body that provides the unity, the umbrella that harbors all of us. But we only can hope and pray for that. We can't force everyone to associate in one association. So at the moment, we are sticking to our goals and our plans. We are not changing because other people are creating small associations. We know how musicians operate, and we hope we shall manage to bring them back home anytime.
But what we do know for a fact, as morning as at NTV, is that you need to rein in and arrest this debilitating situation. Just a couple of months ago, one association that had been divided went into Gen Salim Saleh in two groups. One group was allowed to enter, another one was stopped from entering. Now, when they actually resisted and tried to enter forcefully, they were beaten up. So we are talking about such situations where you can rein in, as Uganda Musicians Association, to do away with all these splinter associations so that you can talk with one voice. Don't you think that's the reason why 2 years on, the music industry is still under lock and key, because you do not have one voice speaking on your behalf? Mr. Bushington.
Yes, yeah. The reason why we haven't, I think, not opening the industry is not just us having one voice, yes. But if we have one, like I said, if we had one association, it would be better. Maybe we could pass our information or communicate to government stronger and faster. I also like to point and note that not everyone that goes to Gulu is a musician, and not every association that you hear is an association. There is a lot of conmen, there's a lot of small groups, there's schemers, there's a lot of people. So, and they get also the media, and the media finds it as content. So not everyone that goes to Gulu or to Gen Saleh and says, we have an association, it's an association. They did research, I think the Office of the Creation did research and found out that even the people who are forming other associations were holding cards of UMA. They belong to UMA, and they didn't denounce belonging to UMA. But they feel that, you know, I'll tell you, it came up from the promoters' era, when the promoters got a stimulus fund. So everyone knew that if you form a group of 5 people, you're going to get a funding you get. And this is what people are trying to capitalize on, the opportunity that you can be remunerated somewhere, somehow. And they want survival. So that's why all these associations are coming. But we're trying so hard to make sure that we stick to our goals. We're firm, we're still very, very firm and strong. And this happens because the industry is locked and people are broke, people need money, need survival. So whenever they find opportunities, but like I said, not everyone that you see in Gulu is a musician, and not everyone that you see going to Gulu is an association. Some of them are WhatsApp groups, some of them are plans that are made by people within the offices of the wealth creation themselves. So it's beyond our control, by which I'll try to manage.
He is the spokesperson of the Uganda Musicians Association, and he has made it categorically clear that not everyone who is going to Northern Uganda to meet Gen Salim Saleh is actually an artist or representing the interests of the artists in that regard. I do have Anthony Mwandha. Before we go to Andrew Kaggwa, you wanted to make a reaction to Bush's submission. Please go ahead.
Yes, I agree with Bushington that I call it the success of the promoters to put a case, put a case for compensation. It triggered reactions down the line, inevitably affecting artists. But I'll say this, when you have a situation of anarchy, those who are organized will stand out to gain. The promoters put out a case and said, look, we had paid so-and-so upfront for so many concerts. The promoters brought from as far back as 2018. They said, we paid these people for the Charenga concerts, we paid so-and-so, we paid the hotel, we paid travel, we paid this. They put on the table. We paid for a foreign artist, we paid this, we paid this. We paid for local artists. Well, whether influenced or otherwise, what happens that they were organized? Now, when you come to the creators, actually the guys who own the music, and I stand with them, I sympathize with them, but they were not organized. When they came, they fought in front of Gen Saleh.
Wow.
It became a problem. When they were not listened to, they went to Gen Saleh's home, his residence, to demand. So then they only got negative after negative after negative.
Is it true that the people in northern Uganda right now trying to talk to Gen Salim Saleh do not know where their music is?
I am not sure about that.
Meaning they are not registered with you? So they are not getting any money from UPRS. They do not know whether their music is on YouTube. They do not know whether their music is on Facebook. They do not know whether their music is any of these streaming sites. If they knew, they would be getting their money from these other sources and not having to beg from Gen Salim Saleh.
The truth is that music in Uganda has not been monetized the way it should be.
I hear you.
If you compare with music in Nigeria, in Tanzania, in South Africa, it has been monetized properly and put into packages. Their collecting societies are active. They are being funded properly by government. The artists are falling in line. All their work is registered. That's why there is a comparative advantage in those societies.
In those countries, my job is just to go to a studio, produce this very amazing work, and just sit back and let everything work itself out.
But here, you have big artists, big names, who are actively fighting the UPRS and said, don't register there. Now, if you do that, then it becomes terrible. Then you have media houses which are telling artists, we shall not pay your music if you sign with UPRS. So there's a lot of controversy.
Indeed. Anthony Mwandha, CEO of Uganda Performing Rights Society, they are mandated with actually registering of the artists. If you're in Gulu and you haven't registered, maybe that's part of the problem why you are there to begin with. Andrew Kaggwa is an arts and culture journalist with whom I had a conversation last evening. Before this conversation that is main, we were talking about how we got into this situation, Andrew Kaggwa, yesterday, the fact that these artists wouldn't be in northern Uganda talking to Gen Salim Saleh if they had actually put in place some structures for themselves other than the music industry. The focus now having been music, that's why they are in northern Uganda. Am I right, Andrew Kaggwa?
Actually, like we talked yesterday, personally, I believe in this industry and I know the power this industry has. But this is not an industry you just get in without a plan. Like, a plan is always needed. Like I tell most artists that, okay, I usually tell people that most artists believe you can be on the top forever. And one of the reasons why artists are in Gulu is because they've always believed they can be on the top forever. And for them being on the top is being overbooked, performing about 3 times a night, and because that's how they know how to make money. Yet artists in other countries know that when you get into an industry, you will have your very good 5 or 3 years, but you need to make those years count as far as financial discipline is concerned. So, like I say, today we are where we are because people invested in themselves, which is not a bad thing, but they invested in only their art and they invested in keeping themselves at the top, not knowing that probably the audience was shifting, probably people were not listening as they were listening in 2005, and dynamics were changing. There were other ways of making money, which might not necessarily be on the stage. So, like right now, when you look at other markets, for instance, if I could give you an example of Kenya, in Kenya, most of them have not been performing the way Ugandans have not been performing. But of course, you're not finding Kenyan artists harassing people to give them a kickback because they've not been performing. But they are finding ways of making things work. For example, like I told you, I was watching some shows on Showmax, and I noticed Sauti Sol and Nameless and the Wife have reality shows that's creating content and getting paid for it without all these 3 artists having to actually get on the stage. And then you're thinking, okay, Uganda has many of these people that are trying to create content or buy content. Are they buying any Ugandan artist's content, or is a Ugandan artist even thinking in that direction? So I think one of the reasons we are here is because people have failed to get management that notices that when you're a brand, you're also a business.
Of course, Andrew Kaggwa is talking about the situation whereby in the last 20 years, you have people like Jose Chameleon, Bebe Cool, who have not done anything from this industry. I don't know why Andrew Kaggwa is holding back. Yesterday when we were having this conversation, Andrew Kaggwa was telling me that Jose Chameleon in his 20 years or so hasn't actually made sure that another person shines under their wings. You had Radio and Weasel, who shined after leaving Leon Island. Yes, you had King Saha, who shined after leaving Leon Island. But when they were there, they were not shining because Mr. Chameleon was not doing enough to ensure that these young people actually burgeon and reach stardom. You remember Rema Namakula? She did not burgeon to stardom when she was under Bebe Cool. Andrew?
I could say what other markets have noticed is that you can make money through people you discover or people you give a platform. You've seen Diamond Platinum successfully do that he will have a bad year, but he will have collaborations with people that are under his label. And then they will keep him afloat. And then even if he's not making music with them, those people will make him money because they are hitting. When people do not want to listen to Diamond, probably they will listen to Rayvanny, who is directly associated to him. And when you look down to Uganda, most of our people have been building what they call labels to elevate themselves, not to elevate other people. I could say you could look at Leon Island. Like we've had Leon Island for all the years we've been listening to Jose Chameleon's music, but you do not have an artist that was successful under Leon Island. It's like everyone had to leave for them to become successful. Yet, if they had actually been successful under Leon Island, they would have been making him a lot of money. The same way all these different artists are making money for songs. So, like I said, one of the reasons we are where we are right now is because people were very individualistic when they were thinking about the music industry or how they were planning their music business. They were planning, most of the money they were spending was spent on themselves because they thought they could stay at the top forever. And because, you know, as we always believe you're at the top, you keep getting signing, you keep getting endorsements, and you keep being booked. And at the moment, no one is booking anyone.
Andrew Kaggwa, thank you very much. In a nutshell, Andrew Kaggwa is saying that if artists had worked on that, they wouldn't be in northern Uganda trying to beg General Salim Saleh for some money. Let's also bring in George Bush Kagoda, the spokesperson for the Uganda Musicians Association. Mr. Kagoda, you've been undertaking your mandate for the last 4 years. We would like to know how many of these artists have you helped since the inception of Uganda Musicians Association? And with these cropping associations, how do you plan to bridge the artists and these associations in that regard?
I don't know why you don't ask me industry. You're only asking me Uma. Yet I could also put some input on the previous questions. But I was
you can react.
Yeah. So I would like to differ a little bit from my brother there, Andrew. And this is what I would like to say is before you compare Ugandan industry to whatever industries that you're comparing us, first understand the structure of the Ugandan country, the structure of the Ugandan people. Yeah, we as Ugandans, we as the industry, because I'm a producer, so I'm part and parcel of this industry, and I'm also a talent manager. So I want you to understand one thing. The industry in Uganda for the last 20, 30 years, we've been earning from only performances, whereas the other countries you're comparing us, artists perform less. They perform less but expensively, but earn from other structures that are in place. Which structures we don't have, and the man next to you is now the responsible person creating the structures. You get. So even if you say you can't compare Davido or Wizkid, who is earning from a lot of other avenues than music. To be honest, you go on these Instagrams and see whether they perform. They never perform. That's why they can be able to do tours and attract a lot of, sell their shows expensively and even attract fans to watch. Whereas here, you suppose the more gigs that you do is the more money that you take back home. And then look at the structure still within the administration of the artist. They are not alone. You have people that you feed, you have people that feed on you. So maybe I won't say it's this. There's the fact that our artists, yes, earn something and mismanage it, but it's not the same level as the other people. If you speak about labels like Diamond, you gave an example for Diamond. Diamond doesn't own Wasafi. You get, he just has a percentage. Oh, he's a shareholder, but he doesn't own. There are people who invest. Now, how are we going to attract investors to invest in a business that is not as strong as other countries? Because, you know, investors do their research. You get. So if we are only earning on performances and the artist is going on stage, I'll tell you for a fact, labels usually don't take even performance fees. They take royalties, they take product sales, but they don't take much of the performances. It's usually left to the artists, unless they organize the tours. So the whole issue goes back to the structure and the culture of our people. Our people like consuming things for free. They don't like buying stuff. So if the government hasn't put a lot of emphasis on industry structures like copyright, you get. If we only had a good CMO before, or collecting society before, that was paying royalties, that was monitoring and making sure that the music is monetized and people are getting their royalties, there will be very many investors coming into this business. So, you know, we are playing in a small space and we're being compared to a bigger space. Going back to UMA, we've tried to help. We've tried to help. You know, UMA has been there without any government funding for the last 4 years. We've never received any government funding. I think the only government support that we've received was 2 months ago when we tried to expand from the central region and do our mapping nationwide. We got some support from microfinance, and they didn't even inject the money in the account of UMA. They just facilitated our process. So we've been standing here for all the money that we use in the administration comes from the musicians. You've been seeing us on live wire being thrown out of our office, even the office at National Theatre. We pay for. We've been paying for until I think 2 months ago when they cleared us. We've been paying, yet it's the National Culture Center. So you've seen, like, we've been fighting to stabilize our own selves. It's for our own good. UMA is not like a government structure. So we've been helping artists. We've tried to help a lot of artists with their with court cases, fights amongst ourselves. We've been helping those that we can. When radio died, UMA took over all the barrier arrangements and everything. Even in hospital, we tried to fundraise money to pay the bill. We've been helping artists with sickness. We've been helping artists. Some artists we help, and it's beyond us to help. We've been helping artists that are, you know, have been on drugs, but some of them disappoint us and still go back to drugs. And like I said, we are not a farm association as regards to money. Because
and you are not a farm association when it comes to money, and yes, it is actually true, because this Gen Salim Saleh money has exposed, yes, the the deeper version of how desperate the artists are.
As I speak, we haven't received.
Where does this leave the industry?
We haven't received any coin from Gen Saleh as of yet.
And you're fighting already. So where does this leave the industry?
What's the question?
Yes, this money has shown how deep, the artists are divided. We would like to know, where does this leave the industry, the vulnerability of the artists?
I'm not getting your question very clear.
The money has divided the artists, and it has shown how deeper and vulnerable the artists are. So where does this leave the industry?
At the moment, the industry is disorganized. We are divided because of the money. But they do pass. This will pass and go. We stick. There are structures that need to be in place, whether there is money or not. You get. We need to create those structures in place so that even if this is just a wave, when the COVID situation goes back and people start performing, you won't see artists flying to Gulu to ask for money or to ask for funding. Those artists, creatives, like making their own money. I'll tell you for a fact, creatives are very proud people. So for them to go and start begging, it's demoralizing for them, but it's the only option they have. So if we pray, if this is just a wave and it will go and we shall come back. But the truth is we need our structures, and as UMA, we are focusing on having those structures.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. George Bush Kaggwa.
We've been trying to monitor UPRS for a long time to make sure we engineered the fight against the bad UPRS.
All right.
Mr. Mwandha will testify to you.
He's already here. Kaggwa, the spokesperson of the Uganda Musicians Association. Thank you very much, sir. And because of the desperation, let's show you this clip showing chameleons staging a concert within Gulu without any observance of the standard operating procedures. Clip, but then I still do have Anthony Mwandha, the Uganda Performing Rights Society CEO, with whom we are actually engaging on this conversation. Artists are actually clamoring for this money in the wake of facts that we do know that they could actually be making more money from the UPRS. So what should we be doing now to ensure that we strengthen our structures in that our artists do not have to run to the mercy of one official who has a lot of money?
Well, I like what Bushington has said.
Yes.
I align with him 100%.
All right.
He has seen the opportunity. He has seen that they are in a bad situation. All of us are in a bad situation in the industry. We need to step back and accept that some things didn't go wrong. We need to accept that the artists cannot survive on gigs alone, because COVID has shown us that they can't survive on gigs alone. Let us now put in place things to make the artists earn money outside the gigs. Register your works, register with the collecting society, then you can earn from copyright and online publishing. I also want to take this opportunity to tell the music community that we are having an online webinar today, courtesy of UPRS, and we are going to talk about online publishing as an alternative revenue stream for the creators of music. It will help to bridge the gap which has been caused by the restrictions related to COVID. We believe it will change.
All right, thank you very much. That is Anthony Mwandha. Let's also bring in Andrew Kaggwa and give him some few points to talk about resolutions before I let him go. Do we still have Andrew Kaggwa online? I believe we've lost. Oh, yeah, Andrew Kaggwa, you're still with us.
My friend, I'm a musical genius.
How bad it is, and it paints the vulnerability of the artists in that many of them are so desperate they had to stage mini concerts without any regard for the standard operating procedures. Let me bring in Andrew Kaggwa. Please give us your reaction on that. And let's talk about recommendations moving forward on how artists could actually be making a living without actually being at the mercy of some other people. Andrew? Andrew, resolutions moving forward and your reactions to that particular clip. Well, Andrew Kaggwa seems to have actually lost his connection right there, but you're still watching Morning at NTV. Let's go to...
Going forward, what a chance. Yes, every time I get a chance, I usually tell my artist friends that it's very important for them to sign up with UPRS. Like, one, you might know it has issues, but it's better you sign up and then you can complain later. You can complain when you're in, because when you're part of it, then you can complain and things are rectified and you get some money. And then, of course, we need to look at the streaming platforms. People need to take them serious because it's one of the things where they can make money right now. But above it all, I know people that keep going to Gulu, or people that keep getting the ear of the president. Like, for many of those I've seen, I've rarely had them talk so much about music, talking about policy. People need a policy that does not be paying for the music they are playing, the music they are playing. I think this is the time people should be seeking better policies that can support the industry than going to get simple handouts. Right now, we should be asking for a policy that works. What happened to the local content policy? Like all these things people keep talking about, and on our radios and TVs, what happened to that? What happened to enforcing the copyright law the right way? Like, how are we going to widen the basket of where UPRS can be collecting money from? So we need to be looking at, when I look at it, these are some.
Thank you very much, Andrew Kaggwa. He's talking about boosting the existing structures and also coming up with new policies that could go a long way in helping the artists rather than begging. My name is Romy Busiku. This is Morning at NTV.